your city. We're gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Good Monday, October 29, 2018. Welcome into Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. Thanks a lot for joining us, taking us along wherever you're going, whatever you may be doing. We appreciate it. Hope your day's off to a good start. You had a great weekend. Justin Kalen, high atop the crew chief's box.
That's right.
Big day today. Sammy Jacobs on the program from Hoosier Huddle. We'll go over the mess that is Indiana football. Drew Davis, Pigs.com. We've got a lot to talk about with Indiana basketball as the Hoosiers took on the Rambling Ramblers of Loyola Chicago and Sister Jean yesterday up at Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Secret scrimmage, but I've got a lot of information on it. We'll talk about all that and a lot more. Before we get to it, let's get to the headlines with Justin Kalen.
All right, here are your headlines for this Monday, October 29th, brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. There's a new World Series champion as the Red Sox finished off the Dodgers last night to win the series 4-1. Steve Pearce was named World Series MVP. The Red Sox and the Astros are early 2019 favorites. Adam Vinatieri passes Morton Anderson for the most points in NFL history yesterday as the Colts defeated the Raiders. And a big shakeup in the college football rankings as 11 ranked teams fell this weekend. Those are your headlines, brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs.
And a lot going on yesterday. Yeah, Adam Vinatieri for the Colts passing. Do you know where Morton Anderson went to high school?
Nope. I'm guessing Indiana.
High school, yeah, in Indiana.
Yeah.
Ben Davis.
Well, there you go.
I did not know that until recently.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I always thought he was foreign, so I'm thinking, I wonder if he was a foreign exchange student. But, yeah, that was something. And a record that some people are saying that will never be broken.
Well, they were saying that Morton Anderson's will never be broken. Took a guy to almost 45 years old to get it.
Yeah, it'll never happen again.
No. So
you saw some history. A lot going on over the weekend. Like I said, a lot of college football. Man, a lot of change in the top 25. Some good games, some great games, some crap games. We'll talk about them all. Indiana was involved in one I would call a crap game.
Yeah.
And I am so sick and tired of this. We're so young. Minnesota's younger. That quarterback that was poised enough to hit that game-winning play, he's just a freshman. God forbid you play a freshman at quarterback. You know who he hit, that receiver? He's just a true freshman. But golly, Indiana's so young. That's a worn-out excuse. It's embarrassing. They're embarrassing. They got beat by a team that's giving up 44 points and 500 yards a game. That's their average. Indiana's the medicine for everybody. Morgan Ellison released a statement. The former running back for Indiana University was dismissed from the program and school in regards to sexual misconduct allegations. He is claiming innocence, that Indiana has rushed to judgment and ignored a critical text message that shows consent. But as I was reading the article, it mentioned, but he certainly is ignoring all the multiple text messages that came afterwards that was not talking about anything to do with consent. Actually, the other way. So it's on there for you to read. If you'd like to read it, go ahead and do so. I'm not going to get into that too deeply. It's an ongoing deal. But Jordan Howard had a great day yesterday for the Bears.
Yeah, he did.
22 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown. The 24-10 win over the Jets. I watched some of that game. Ian Thomas still getting some action. Had a catch in 15 yards as they beat the Ravens 36-21.
And that's with Greg Olsen being back now. So,
well, they can't just shut him down. He's done a good enough job.
Right.
I mean, he's someone that they see that he's either going to have value for the future as a player or trade or whatever.
Interestingly enough, it seems like he gets more attention when Olsen's in as opposed to when Ian Thomas is the featured tight end.
Probably so. Man, there were some games in college football over the weekend. A lot of changes in the top 25. Did you see Kentucky's game?
Yeah, that was crazy, huh?
ugly, ugly game, but a crazy finish. Kentucky finds a way to win with the help of a poor pass interference call, and then a worse non-offensive pass interference call for the touchdown.
Yeah.
He pushed off on the guy.
Oh, yeah.
Plain obvious. But, hey, didn't get called, so that's doing what it takes to win.
Kentucky up to number 11, nearly in the top 10.
I got 12.
12 now. Or it was 12 this weekend.
Well,
The new poll, they were 11.
That's different than the one I'm looking at, I guess. But anyway, they didn't move much, which is shocking because several teams jumped 11 spots. One team jumped 20 spots. Who was that? I think it was Syracuse.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
They're only up to 24, but they jumped 20 spots.
How about Syracuse football being ranked?
Beat Clemson last year,
That's true.
and I think they gave them a good run this year, if I recall. Notre Dame. How about Notre Dame? Okay, I saw that they beat Navy. Kind of beat them handily, I guess, but I don't know if it was like 44-22 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was a closer game, but they won. I'm still not sold on Notre Dame, man. There's no way they're the number 3 team in the country. If that's the case, then I don't think they're better than Michigan right now. And they beat Michigan earlier in the season. Michigan's sitting outside the top 4 right now, tied for 5, right outside of that spot. I don't see, if Michigan wins out, there is no way in hell you keep them out of the top 4. No way. Michigan is the only avenue for the Big Ten, in my opinion, to get someone in. There is no way Ohio State makes it back.
No.
They're 8th. They didn't drop very far, which again shocks me, but they got smoked. You can't recover from that. That's what kept them out last year, getting smoked by Iowa.
I don't know. I think Ohio State may have enough time.
I think that they're not good enough.
When they show out in the Big Ten championship,
They're not good enough. They're not.
I don't
saw
disagree
them
with
play,
that, but
so.
I also think they've got a shot. They're not dead in the water.
You got Oklahoma in front of them. You got Georgia in front of them. You got Michigan in front of them. That's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Now they have the opportunity to take care of Michigan when they play.
Oh, and Georgia's probably going to get taken care of by Alabama in the SEC championship.
Yeah, but losing Alabama.
It's different than losing to anybody else.
Yes. Yes, sir. Ding, ding, ding. You got it. Big game coming up this weekend. Speaking of Kentucky, speaking of Georgia, Kentucky's biggest game, excuse me, since 1950, when they last won the SEC. So they are going to be partying it up down in Lexingtonians.
They got a shot in that, you think?
Well, if they get the kind of calls and no calls they did against Missouri, but I find it hard to believe that a team that struggled as badly as they did against a team as bad as Missouri has much of a shot against Georgia. But sometimes you just can't go game by game like that.
It was on the road.
It's still, man, it's still Georgia. It was still Missouri. They're not good. That's like Missouri. I don't want to hear that crap. It's on the road. They still suck.
I want to say Missouri was favored in that.
That would be shocking. Make sure you hit us up on the text line today, 502-444-1450. Let us know what you're thinking. You got any questions for any of the guys coming on today? Hit us up. Thoughts, opinions. Let us know what you think of the situation with Indiana football. We'll be talking about that later.
Not good.
It's horrific. It's a dumpster fire.
I'm wondering if there's anyone out there that still feels somewhat good about this team. Or has everybody completely jumped off the wagon?
Well, you got a ton of fans that are just passive fans. Well, Indiana has mostly passive fans because they don't have that many that support them. It's a sad situation. I want Tom Allen. I'd love to see Tom Allen succeed. He's not going anywhere, and I'm not saying he should be. I've never said that, because that's not always what's in the best interest of a program. But something's got to happen. I mean, I want to start off on a Monday with that. It's depressing. Just is. Not how you want to start a week off.
Yeah, probably not.
Indiana soccer finished the
There we
Big
go.
Ten 8-0 only team. Another Big Ten championship. The Big Ten tournament starts on the 3rd, I think. They'll play their first round game on the November 4th at Indiana. I think they may play 2 games before it's moved up to Westfield, Indiana for the Big Ten finals, which probably head back up to that again this year. Was up there last year. It was cold and windy. I remember that. Cold and windy.
Yeah, Indiana's the first team in Big Ten history to go 8-0, which is pretty impressive. I can't believe that's never happened.
Well, I can't believe Indiana's never done it.
Yeah.
When I read that, I'm like, okay, are they talking about this year? Because I'm like, how could they have not done that? But, and it is mind-boggling a little bit, but there are so many ties in soccer.
Yeah.
I'd say that I bet you I wonder how many times they've gone 7-0-1. But so now you've got one of the winningest programs in the history of collegiate soccer, Indiana, with 8 national championships, becoming now the first team to go undefeated through the Big Ten. Matches the basketball program. I believe they're the only ones to ever go 18-0 in the Big Ten. And they did it twice.
Making history.
Levels of excellence. Too bad that doesn't cut across to the football program. We've got a lot to talk about on the program. Like I said, Sammy Jacobs from Hoosier Huddle, DrewDavisPeaks.com. We're talking basketball hoops. John Boel and Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, all coming up here on the program today. Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle's coming right back.
These are the days when you wish your bed was already made. It's just another manic Monday. Wish it was Sunday. That's my fun.
If you're a homeowner and have storm damage to your roof, you want a hometown contractor you can count on and trust. Brooks Roofing of New Albany has been doing quality work since 2006. Check out their work for yourself at brooksroofingin.com. No job is too big or too small, commercial or residential. Brooks Roofing is probably working in your neighborhood right now. Visit brooksroofingin.com or call 812-868-ROOF. That's 812-868-ROOF. Brooks Roofing, the protection you need when nature strikes.
This is Jim Coyle. When I'm not on the road covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 on the northeast side of I-65 at Veterans Parkway in Clarksville. Bring the team in for that post-win meal in the family dining area or just meet friends for a happy hour. Bubba's has bold burgers, hand-tossed pizzas, mouth-watering wings, and a list of select local craft brewers for the coldest beer in town. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Burgers, pizza, beer. Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
It was a beautiful day, sun beat down, I had the radio on, I was driving.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle here on this Monday. Joined now by Sammy Jacobs from Hoosier Huddle. Sammy, how are you, brother?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Great. How's the new job going? Physical education teacher.
It's going day 4, so it's not too bad.
Still there. Awesome. Well, another weekend of Indiana football as they traveled to the Great White North, taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and unfortunately for them, P.J. Fleck rode his boat right over top the Hoosiers. Not a pretty performance. It was, for a brief moment in the fourth quarter, pretty, that's for certain, when they scored 22 unanswered points. But they give it up with a freshman quarterback and a freshman receiver who just picked them apart at the end.
Yeah, it was, a frustrating loss, 31-9 hole that ultimately was too much to dig at them. They came back. But, a lot of times in those big comebacks, you run out of gas, expending your energy, getting all the way back, and, just a crushing loss.
Well, and with that loss, it's not mathematically, but when you look at things, that may have been the season right there because their best opportunity for winning 6 games was going through Minnesota. Now they've got a break this week with the off week as they wait for Maryland to come in, but it doesn't look good going forward as far as getting that 6th win, and that's got to hurt this program.
Yeah, there's always, every year it seems that when they don't go to a bowl, there's one win you circle that, man, if they could have pulled that one out, they should have won, and things like that. And this is one of those days.
And now going forward, Michael Penix is hurt. They waited long to play him, then he got hurt. Now you're going forward with, in essence, a lame duck quarterback for the rest of the season. How does this help going into next year? What can they do to salvage something positive going forward for next year to try to get something good going?
Well, that's a tough question,
Right.
You try and get some of these young guys to play. You want to see improvement on defense. You've got to absolutely fix your special teams units because they've been awful. You want to see something in the kick return game. You want to see some improvements on somewhere. And you got to get it. If you want to get your freshmen more playing time, now's the time to do it.
Well, as they sit there with a 4-5 record, I can't honestly say I've seen any progress as far as getting better in things. The special teams, they're still terrible. It's not. Things don't look like they're getting any better from the outside, at least. And I'm sure that there's positive things to be picked up and maybe missing. But for the most part, I don't see improvement with this team.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, the offensive line has been probably the most improved, but that's about it. It seems like the defense has regressed a little bit, which happens when you have a young defense. Special teams, there's no other word to describe it other than awful. It's every week it's something different. And it started with Virginia, and you'd hoped it was just a blip on the radar. Now it's a full-fledged problem.
And as we go forward, like I said, they've got a break here. They can sit back, collect themselves, heal up anybody that may be dinged up, try to get some of those guys back, and make a push to knock off Maryland and upset Purdue. To be honest, I mean that's going to take an upset because there's no way Purdue's not going to be favored in that game. When it comes down to it. But it's a rivalry game, and, of course, that's a couple weeks away, so there's no sense in talking a lot about it. But that's going to end up being maybe their only chance if they can knock off Maryland.
Yeah, it's, this open week is much needed, especially after last week. And, Maryland looked good, dropping 63 on Illinois a week after being shut out by Iowa. And you need that 5th win, and you have to take it one game at a time. But again, it's these are the situations that IU football finds themselves in more often than not, and you're asking a lot of a team that's kind of reeling to win 2 out of 3 against Maryland, Purdue, and Michigan. So. You just, maybe have to change your goals as a team and or just take it one game at a time and come out and make it a one-game season again. So it's going to be difficult. And Maryland is certainly not world beaters, but, one week they look great. One week they look, look like, the team that gets shut out twice. So.
Yeah, they've got a great win to open the season against the Texas team that is now in the top 10, although they just got beat over the weekend. But they've got that win. Then they, like you said, they kind of go away, then come back. Kind of like Indiana in a way, but just Indiana doesn't have the highs that Maryland has had. But they're kind of similar in that
Virginia,
regard.
yeah, I mean, Virginia's now ranked 23rd in the AP poll.
And they're going to win the division on their division in the ACC, by the way, probably.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to them and Virginia Tech the last game of the year, it looks like. And then FIU is going to play for their, win their division. And that's that. So it's been very weird. It's been a fun college football season.
But here's another thing,
overall.
that further points out to me, at least, those teams both losing to Indiana, and I noticed FIU getting votes in the top 25. Virginia, you said, is ranked, and they're fighting for a division crown now. But they got both lost to Indiana. But now, as we get to this part of the season, they continue to improve and get better, and it looks like Indiana's gone the other way, unfortunately. And are they on the brink of losing the program if the season just crashes?
What do you mean the program?
I mean, just, you know how when things just really seem to take a turn? Like, to me, Bobby Petrino has lost the program down in Louisville. And I don't know if there's any getting it back for them. The fans, they're done. They're ready to move on. I'm not saying that's the case in Indiana, because it's not. But is that a possibility? And if the rest of the season just tanked, could that happen?
I mean, I don't think, not to the extent of it that what's happened at Louisville, because there's a lot of other circumstances that are going behind the scenes on it at Louisville. Will you lose the fan base? Certainly, if that hasn't already happened. Fans, at least fans are angry. It could be a lot worse. They could just not care,
right?
And just move on. But fans are angry. If you look up the IU football hashtag on social media, a lot of them are, voicing their anger there, and it's pretty obvious. And I understand it, I get it, but I don't think program's gonna go down the toilet like it has at Louisville, unless, if you lose out, but if you could lose everybody, but it's not gonna. I don't think it'll be as deep as it is at Louisville because of everything that's happened.
Talking with Sammy Jacobs from HoosierHuddle.com. Well, my bigger and another concern is, let's say they lost out, the recruiting. All the gains made in recruiting, that's got to affect a guy who is still yet to make that decision. And even those that have made it, like someone like Samson James, wonder, have I made a mistake?
Yeah, well, that's what you hope, is to get some guys in these classes and go get some wins and hold this class together until December and sign as many of them as you can. And that's what's nice about the early signing date, is that you can lock these guys in earlier. But yeah, kids want to win. They want to go to bowl games. They want to be on TV. And now, IU's always on national TV, but they want those games on ABC and the night games on ESPN and with game day there and all that stuff. So, ultimately it comes down to winning games. If you win games, fans will show up and recruits will be there. But for right now, they just have to concentrate on getting healthy over the open week, working on the things they need to get fixed, and moving on to Maryland.
Are there any guys that have been dinged up that they haven't had that they have a good chance of getting back that will make a difference for the team?
Well, it looked like Jacob Robinson has been, he's been healthy enough to play, at least according to Allen during some of his press conferences. That's how I took his comments, but he hasn't played. He can make a difference of senior leadership, veteran leadership on defense, and other than that, we'll see. A lot of injury is coach speak, and that's what it's turned out. Some guys he's listed as, we might get them back, they don't play, or we might not get them back, and they do play, and so it's a waiting game.
And they are a young team. I don't like to hear that as an excuse because there are teams that are younger. Specifically, Minnesota is younger. Minnesota has more freshmen than Indiana, and as a matter of fact, Minnesota beat Indiana using a freshman quarterback and a freshman receiver on the final play. But using that youth as an excuse so much this season, it doesn't. When you get beat by a team who's younger than you, by a freshman quarterback and a freshman receiver, that kind of takes that excuse and throws it away to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a handy excuse when you lose until you lose to somebody who's a little bit younger, but the growing pains are going to be there. It just happens. That's how you get experience and learning experience and figure out what you're doing wrong and what you need to fix. And, we'll see. The two Minnesota wide receivers, they got burned by a senior as well, an upperclassman. And Shannon Brooks is a very, very good running back who came back from injury and then got injured. He ran very well against IU, and that freshman's been in the program. The mentality has to change from freshmen can't play in the Big Ten to, okay, these guys can and will play, and they're going to be good. You've seen Rondale Moore become a high-impact player in his first game. But all season long, you have Aiden Martinez over at Nebraska. Then Tanner Morgan had the game of his life. They're starting Zach Anstead as well over there before he got hurt. You see a lot of freshmen come in and make differences. And that's the frustrating thing is that, these guys, they're not bad players. They're good players. And we've seen a lot of freshmen step up for IU and play well. It seems that the growing pains are a little bit longer than some of these other teams' growing pains, and they end up, showing out against the Hoosiers. And that's how it has gone this year.
Sammy Jacobs from Hoosier Huddle. Sammy, what's on HoosierHuddle.com for the folks to go see and read after this weekend?
Well, we got our bowl projections for the Big Ten. We do those every week, starting last week. We'll go through. There's some great Big Ten races that this week we're going to take a look at. It's an open week. We'll catch everybody up on recruiting. We'll catch everybody up on how IU guys are performing in the NFL this year, and maybe what needs to be fixed over the last 3 games if IU wants to pull a rabbit out of the hat and go to the postseason.
Sammy Jacobs from HoosierHuddle.com. Make sure you go to their site. Check it out. Complete coverage of the Hoosier football program by HoosierHuddle.com. And Sammy Jacobs, appreciate you, brother. Great talking to you as always. Look forward to talking to you at the end of the week. And until then, have a great week.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Sammy Jacobs from HoosierHuddle.com. Check out the coverage of the Indiana football program right there. Coming up next on the program, we've got Drew Davis from Peaks.com. We're talking Indiana basketball as the Hoosiers take on the Ramblers of Loyola Chicago and Sister Jean up at a double secret probation scrimmage. Bankers Life Fieldhouse. We'll talk about it when we come back on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle right after this.
Got a problem with your big truck? Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center is here to help. For over 30 years, truck drivers and fleet operators have depended on their great service center off I-65 in Clarksville. And now you can get the same level of service, repairs, and parts selection that's been offered for generations and save on bridge tolls with their new location on the Outer Loop in South Louisville. They're an authorized Mack, Volvo, and Hino dealer and service center, but they service all makes and models of trucks. Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center.
Today's guest is brought to you by Brooks Roofing, the protection you need when Mother Nature strikes. BrooksRoofingIN.com.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle here on this Monday, October 29. Welcoming in now, Drew Davis from Pigs.com. Drew, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm here, baby. It's Monday, and we're ready for a new week. The Hoosiers yesterday get the double secret probation scrimmage up in Indianapolis, Bankers Life Fieldhouse against the Loyola Chicago Ramblers and Sister Jean. Of course, it was a secret scrimmage. We don't know anything about it. Wink, wink. Apparently, pretty good day by the Hoosiers.
Yeah, reports are that Indiana won 70-48 over Loyola. That's what I've been hearing, and that's obviously a good result. You don't want to read too much into it because it's just a scrimmage. But anytime you're able to beat a team like that in a scrimmage, 70-48, that's obviously a good result because Loyola is a veteran ball club that's coming off the Final Four. They have guys that know what it's like to win. They're experienced, talented players. So that's obviously a very good sign for Indiana where they stand. I hear Jawan Morgan was very, very good and pretty much got whatever he wanted in that scrimmage. I hear Romeo Langford was very solid and finished with a double-double. I hear Justin Smith was a force on the offensive glass, especially, and he had a really, really good day. And Boel was, struggling to keep him off the glass. And then I also heard Al Durham played really well. I hear that he was around double figures and just had a really solid game.
Yeah, speaking of Justin Smith, I didn't hear that he was a force. I heard that he was a tornado. I mean, just an absolute beast in that game that just is going to be scary for some teams.
Yeah, and Loyola had I heard they had trouble keeping him off the offensive glass, and if Justin Smith's able to hit the offensive glass and create extra possessions for Indiana, that's going to be a big, big deal because every time Indiana gets that extra possession, that's just huge. And Justin being able to bring that to the table is something that maybe I didn't think about as much, going into the season. I knew he would be good on the glass, but I didn't think that he would be, over that big of a force on the offensive glass per se. But that just shows you, kind of the strides that he's looked to make in the off season because he's looked to, getting stronger, which that's going to help you with, maybe pulling that rebound down in traffic or, finishing through contact. And I think that's going to be something big that you see with him this year.
Talking with Drew Davis and Pigs.com. Speaking of, Loyola runs the pack line defense as well, and the way I understood it, so they're accustomed to it. But when they encountered Indiana's, their length with that pack line defense just smothered Loyola. It made it very, very difficult for them offensively. Yeah,
that's what I hear. And, with Indiana's versatility and length they have on their roster, they have some nice pieces they can plug into the pack line. Obviously, for the younger guys, it's going to take some time with the pack line to, get used to it. That's just so much being thrown at them in such a short amount of time. And, they're obviously once they get into the game, they're going to make some mistakes early on, but those mistakes are going to help them learn. And, that's the good thing about, younger guys. They just have to kind of go through the process and learn a little bit. And I think you're going to see IU's pack line get better as the season goes along. And with all the versatility and options they have, Archie has a lot of good options for what he can do defensively.
Nothing was supposed to have gotten out of there as far as supposed to have been a secret scrimmage. But I think for Indiana, and I think people are going to start to realize outside of the people that follow the program, because they've been under the radar in the national media and whatnot, and because they were 16-15 last year. But I think that as these results keep leaking out, the fact that they held a Final Four team from last year to 48 points shows their defense is already humming along like an engine. And like you mentioned, going to get better. That's just got to be a scary proposition for the opposition going forward this year.
Right. And with Indiana, right now it's just they're just scratching the surface of what they can become defensively because it's early. And like I said, with these young guys, they're only going to get better as the season goes along. And for Indiana to go out there and hold Loyola to 48 points, that's a very good sign. It's not an easy thing to do because Loyola moves the ball well. They share it. They have good movement. So obviously Indiana's doing something right. They're holding them to 48 points. And then the other thing I hear is I hear that Indiana moved the ball fairly well. And as we know, Archie Miller doesn't have, a ton of his stuff, in yet completely because he likes his guys to kind of pick up on the natural, movements of the offense. So he installs the base stuff a little later. And I think for basically what I heard, Indiana's movement was very good. And the basic stuff they've been working on, learning the movements and cuts within the offense, it sounds like that's helped them a lot. And it's really, hammered home the basic principles of the offense and what they will need to do. And that's obviously a good sign of things to come.
Yeah, my one question, I heard that Al Durham that had a great day. It was in double figures, but what was that playing the 2 guard? Because Romeo obviously had a great day. Apparently, allegedly, 19 and 10. That's a hell of a first game. Right.
And I think with I don't know for sure, obviously, since it was a close scrimmage, but with Al, I think a lineup that Archie Miller had been looking into, he spoke about this at Media Day, was a 3-guard lineup with a DeMonte Green, Romeo Langford, and Al Durham. And I guess even you could even go Rob Fennessy, Romeo Langford, and Al Durham.
I heard Fennessy actually started.
Yeah. I think some guys were banged up or something and didn't play. I don't believe DeMonte Green played in the scrimmage. Probably just precautionary. They don't like to push guys into action if they don't have to in these scrimmages. So that's more so probably what happened there. But with Al's versatility allows you to play those 3 guards because he's a good defender. He's got those long arms and just being able to put him out on the wing at the 3rd guard spot. It gives you a lot of versatility and a lot of guys that can handle the ball and break pressure. And I think that's a lineup that you'll see Archie go to a good bit this year. I think he likes the idea of going to that lineup, and I think Al Durham's made a lot of strides in the off season, and I think you're going to see him have a nice role on the team.
Absolutely, and this has got to be great for confidence for these guys, but to me, it shows me that usually in the beginning of a season, it doesn't matter what sport it is in any team, it takes a while to get things moving in concert. You've got new faces and this and that, people learning. These guys seem like they're together.
Yeah, that's the one thing that a lot of people have made the comment about this group that they seem like they really enjoy going through this together. They really enjoy just getting in there every day and learning. Archie Miller specifically mentioned that. He's talked about how it's a joy to go in every day, and you leave the practice gym and you say that all these guys competed their butts off, and that's something that Archie said that he really likes the coach, and obviously that's the way you like it because you get guys that care, and this group, like you said, they seem a little more connected, like they enjoy being around each other, and that's obviously a good sign because it's a grind. It's 4 or 5 month grind, and it's obviously much easier to do this if your group likes being around each other than if they just don't really enjoy being around each other.
Absolutely. Talking with Drew Davis from Pigs.com. The Hoosiers now, they'll be on display for the public Thursday as they have their one and only preseason scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, against Southern Indiana. So that, and Southern Indiana is, of course, they're not a D1 team, they're a D2 team, but they're a talented team.
Yeah, Southern Indiana will be the first exhibition game, and they're a very solid ball club. Rodney Watson has some nice pieces. They're going to be led by former Rights guard Alex Stein. He's turned into a really nice player for them. Can really score it, shoot it. They got guys like they have some other Rights guys like Jacob Norman and Nate Hansen that play roles on that team, and they also have some guys from Indianapolis to play with Chris Wilkes, who's now at UCLA, and Emmanuel Little, and Mateo Rivera, the brother of Devontae Smith Rivera, and they have some nice pieces, and it's a ball club that has a lot of talent, and I think maybe we can push Indiana to an extent. But I think Indiana will be too much for them in the end. But if you're Archie Miller, I think you're kind of hoping, the USI comes out there and is able to kind of challenge your team for a few minutes. That way you kind of get to replicate that game-like feel and kind of see how your team responds. And I think Archie would much rather prefer that than to just go out there and just destroy Southern Indiana right off the bat.
Now, we were able to get some information regarding that scrimmage yesterday. As we look forward to Thursday, do you think that he's going to play as many people as he can, or is he trying to get things where he can figure out what the starting lineup is actually going to be, running guys in, or is they already kind of know, or is he going to run those guys that is going to be in his 9-10-man rotation maybe?
I don't think he's going to intentionally just play as many people as he can, but I think he'll play the 9, 10, 11, 12 guys maybe that are fighting it out for those 9 or 10 spots. That way they all get a chance to compete for minutes. But I think mainly you'll see those 9 or 10 guys and that are going to be battling it out for spots in the rotation. I think you'll see a lot of them, and then maybe a few more guys outside of that are trying to fight their way or are out on the outside looking into the rotation. And I think you'll see maybe 1 or 2 of those guys play as well.
And as we move forward, were there any surprises that came out of that scrimmage? I know it's just a scrimmage, and we don't officially know a lot about it, but there wasn't any surprises that I saw, but I may not have been privy to everything. So were there anything that was surprising to you that you heard?
I think not really anything surprising per se, other than I think the result kind of surprised me. I expect Loyola to give Indiana more of a challenge, being a veteran and talented ball club. But it's an exhibition, or not an exhibition, but a close scrimmage, so you don't want to read in too much. You don't want to read too much into what the results of that and whatnot. But anytime you can beat a team that just went to the Final Four by 20, 22 points,
and hold them to 48.
That's obviously a very good sign.
Yeah, and to hold them down defensively like that. That's the thing that does stand out to me, is even though they have 6 new faces on this team, this is a team that last year at this time last year was a horrific defensive mess. But by the end of the season, man, they had done a 180. And it looks like not only have they picked right up where they left off, but they've actually improved from that.
Right. At the beginning of the season last year, the defense was just so disconnected, and anytime the other team moved the ball like halfway decent, they could get a good shot. But as you said, as the season went on, it just got better and better. And then by the end of the season, they were playing some solid defense. And they, and last year, at the beginning of the year, earlier at this time, people were talking about how much of an advantage it is to have guys that are experienced with the pack line. And they were saying, next year at this time it'll be big because Indiana will have guys that have experienced it and been through it. And they said, you would see your defense take a big step in the right direction. And I think that's what you're seeing here is the trials and tribulations that Indiana had to go through last year were kind of learning experiences, and they're going to help this team in the long run defensively. And I think that kind of showed yesterday. But as I said, it's a close scrimmage. You don't want to just, read too much into it or raise expectations too much higher just because of a close scrimmage. But overall, it's a very positive result for Indiana and a sign of things that could could be coming, down the road.
And one player we haven't talked about from this scrimmage, Drew, is Juwan Morgan. I heard that he was actually the best player on the floor.
Yeah, I hear Juwan pretty much got whatever he wanted and just had a dominant performance yesterday, which is a very good sign. Obviously, because you need Romeo and Juwan to be really good for you. If you're Archie Miller, to give you that 1-2 punch that you're always going to be able to walk out there and say, we know what we're getting from Romeo and Juwan. And hey, that's a big deal for a coach to not really have to worry about that, and it takes a lot of pressure off of the other guys as well. Kind of says, to them, like, all they have to do is step up and be third and fourth options, and if those guys are going to bring their A game, it certainly makes the job easier for the rest of the roster. And, with Juwan, I can continue to hear that he's been dominating in practice, and the scrimmage yesterday was just another positive thing I've heard about him. And he basically was able to get to whatever spots he wanted on the floor and really succeeded, especially down low, and just kind of had his way.
And before I forget, Caleb First received an offer from Indiana, and then, of course, Christian Lander, he goes out and gets an offer from Kansas.
Yeah, Caleb First visited Indiana for an unofficial visit this weekend. His family wanted to do more of a true unofficial visit, as well as the IU coaches, because, while it's great to go to events like Hoosier Hysteria, sometimes you don't necessarily get to see everything that you're wanting to see. So he went to come down with him and his family after going to Butler on Friday. They came down to Indiana for more of a true unofficial to check out the newer facilities that have kind of been upgraded since the last couple of visits he's had, and kind of continue to strengthen his bond with the IU staff. And then Archie Miller likes to present a scholarship offer in a meaningful setting, which having the family on campus certainly checks the box of, kind of being able to, extend that offer in a meaningful way. And that's what they did, and I hear the visit went well, and certainly a positive step in things for Indiana, develop that relationship with First. He's going to be one of the top 2 players in that class, and then one of the other top players in that class, and Christian Lander, went out to Kansas this weekend and picked up an offer. It's a big offer for, anyone, and because Kansas is one of the, obviously, top 6 programs in all of college basketball, and just the environment around their program with the tradition and excellence they've experienced over the years. That's obviously a very big selling point for Kansas, and I hear that visit was a very big one for Christian, and the offer was one that definitely catches his eye, especially with the success Kansas has had with their guards over the years, and even the type of guards they've had with the Devontae Grahams, the Frank Masons. I think that's definitely something that catches his eye.
We'll certainly find out. Lots of things going on right now in the world of Indiana basketball. More coming up this weekend. This week. We'll be meeting with Archie and media availability on Wednesday, and then they take on Southern Indiana on Thursday in a game up at Assembly Hall. So looking forward to getting to actually see these guys play for the first time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see live action, these guys on the floor. I mean, obviously it's great to get information about the close scrimmage, but I'd much rather see it with my own 2 eyes. So I'm interested to see what Indiana will be able to do against USI on Thursday.
Perfect. Drew Davis from Peaks.com. Can't thank you enough. As always, look forward. We'll talk to you again on Friday, recap the Southern Indiana game with the Hoosiers on Thursday. But until then, have a great week, man.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later this week.
Sounds great. Drew Davis from Peaks.com. We've got more coming up. He's brought to you, of course, by Brooks Roofing. The protection you need when Mother Nature strikes. BrooksRoofingIN.com is where you can find them. They're probably working in your neighborhood right now, a contractor here in Indiana since 2006. Hook them up, BrooksRoofingIN.com. We're coming back with more on Indiana Sports Beat. Don Fischer's on the show today. We'll be right back.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
This hour of Indiana Sports Beat is brought to you by Kentucky and His Premier Truck Center. With locations in Louisville and Clarksville, sales or service, they've got you covered. Kentucky and His Premier Truck Center.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Jim Coyle here on this Monday, October 29, 2018. Justin Kalen, high top the crew chief's box.
That's right.
Hope you're having a good day. Week's off to a great start, and that you had a great weekend. Thanks a lot for taking us along, wherever you're going, whatever you may be doing. Got a lot more coming up on the show. Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, will join us, as always. Before we get to that, let's get to the headlines with Justin.
All right, here are your headlines for this October 29th on this Monday. Brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. There's a new World Series champion as the Red Sox finished off the Dodgers last night to win the series 4-1. Steve Pearce was named World Series MVP, and the Red Sox and Astros are early 2019 favorites. Adam Vinatieri passes Morton Anderson for the most points in NFL history. Big shakeup in college football rankings as 11 ranked teams fell this week, and Joey Logano wins the NASCAR race at Martinsville and an exciting finish. Those are your headlines for this Monday, October 29th, brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs.
And talking about the top 25 college football poll coming out, a lot of shakeup, man. Not much at the top, though. Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, LSU, the top 4 spots. Michigan sitting one spot out right now. I think they're better than Notre Dame. I know they lost to them, but I think they've just gotten better. Notre Dame is a team to me that, man, they just haven't given me that wow factor yet. Not one time, not one game have they wowed me, which they don't have to, but I'm just... For the eye test, I'm not seeing it, but.
Speaking of Notre Dame, Joker actually texts in the show, 502-414-1450, if you would like to do the same, and asks, Jim, if Notre Dame beats Northwestern this week, at Northwestern, by the way, how would you feel about them? They would have beaten the best 2 teams in the Big Ten. Northwestern leads the West, and Michigan leads the East.
That is a absolute perfect point, and that would make them the Big Ten champion. Of sorts, de facto champion. Yep. Northwestern is a team that has continued to improve, and they are leading the West Division of the Big Ten. They beat Wisconsin. Who'd they beat this weekend? They barely lost. They lost to Michigan. Yeah. In a game that they were leading. So, but they're a good team. That's going to be a hell of a game, I think. That's going to be the stiffest test since Michigan, but they got Michigan early. If they were playing Michigan this late, I think it would be a different story. But to answer his question, you got to give it to them. I mean, the win's a win, man.
Northwestern beat Wisconsin, by the way.
What did I say?
Michigan. Couple touchdowns.
Oh, they lost to Michigan. No, they lost to Michigan
earlier.
A couple weeks back. They were as a game they were leading. Right. That they lost, but they're a tough team. So, but if Notre Dame beats them, you got to give them props, man. You got to. But
does that turn your opinions around on Notre Dame?
It has to. When you beat, even though they got Michigan early on, it doesn't matter. They beat them, and if you beat Northwestern now, that's a good win. That's a good win. But their schedule's weak, partly because they play 5 ACC teams as part. I mean, it's almost half their schedule. The ACC is one of the weakest conferences in all of college football. Yeah. Dude, Virginia is tied for the division lead. They lost to Indiana. That's enough said. They got Clemson, and that is it. The other marquee team, that entire conference, is Florida State, and they lost 59-10 at home. It was so bad, a professor sat at the top row and read a book and became a national media darling because of it, which I thought was hilarious.
Without his shirt. That was great.
Yeah, no, just oblivious to the world. He's just sitting up there and he's being blasted all over the world on ESPN. No idea.
What was the book? Wasn't the book called something like Darkest
Dark
Days?
Places.
Yeah, Dark
Places, I think.
It's fantastic.
Very ominous and foreboding for Florida State, unfortunately. But that's another program. It's Willie Taggart, man, big contract and worst loss in Florida State home football history. So not going well for them down there. Other teams in the poll that have moved up and down. That a little surprising. Kentucky with that big ugly win over the weekend, they didn't move hardly, and I think that the pollsters didn't drop them for an ugly game. They didn't reward them either, even though they won that game because that game was ugly and Missouri's not that good. Plus, they were basically gifted it the win because that was a very iffy pass interference call that gave them an untimed down. And then there was a definitive offensive pass interference call that was not made. So, gifted the win, but hey, they got it. So, win's a win in my book. I certainly wouldn't give it back if I got it. But you got Syracuse that's in the rankings now. Texas A&M dropped out. How about this? Here's something for you. Wisconsin is no longer ranked. Michigan State, no longer ranked. Northwestern is not ranked. Big Ten's got like 4 teams in the top 13, I think. Something like that. Yeah. But that's it. And there's nothing else until you get Wisconsin. So it's going to be an interesting remainder of the season as we head down. Indiana is man, they're reeling. Still seeking a 5th win. They've now lost, 4 in a row?
It's been bad.
It has been bad, and it is a second consecutive season without going to a bowl game. Cannot be a good look for Tom Allen.
No.
He inherited a program from Kevin Wilson after they had gone to 3 consecutive bowl games. Under his watch, losing record at 5-7. This year, I think at 5-7 is a lofty goal. 4-8 is a reality, a distinct possibility. Sure hear a lot of words and lots of excuses. We're young. Yeah, well, we're 9 games in the season. Even if you were young, tired of hearing it.
Yeah.
Minnesota was younger than you were.
What needs to happen in Bloomington?
Oh, man. Well, I'm not on the fence of saying you got to fire the head coach because that's just not always what's good for a program because he's not been there long enough, and it could derail a lot of recruiting. But then you look at the other side. Well, do you just continue going? And what happens if 2 more years from now you're at 2-10? Do you look back and say, well, gee whiz, I sure wish we'd have done something 2 years ago? Because now we've had 4 years of this. So it's changes have to happen. Here's what has to happen. They're not going to fire Tom Allen. They're paying him, he's the least paid coach in the Big Ten. That's all. That's what Fred Glass cares about. It doesn't cost money, or it costs as little money as possible. And everybody keeps talking about, well, look at the stadium. Yeah, that's great. You built an empty monument. How about you put money into the coaching? You have the lowest paid staff in the Big Ten. You have the 65th lowest paid staff in college football. Why don't you show you really care about the program, not the amenities, and go that route? How about a better product before you put a better box around it? You want to give me a great gift? I don't need it to come in this fancy box. Give me the great gift. And the great gift is a good program, is a winning program, a program that's at least competitive. Now, what's it going to take to get to there?
Well, Tim T texts in and says that DeBoer needs to go. So,
well, that's a fact.
I know that's a pretty common thought about this football team. I've seen a lot of people say that, and it's probably true. I mean,
it's definitely true.
Yeah.
I mean, he's horrible. He is horrific. The game planning is horrific. The inability to make in-game adjustments, horrific. And it goes on and on. It's every week. But it's not just the offense.
Right.
Because
defense
this is an
allowed
offense,
38 points to Minnesota.
and this is an offense that scored 2 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Right. Well, where was this for 3.5 quarters prior to that? Why does it take you 3 quarters and being pushed to the brink before you say, hey, why don't we try to win this game? Why don't you try to win from the opening kickoff? That's just a thought. Because this conservative mantra is mind-numbing, and I don't get it. Again, I continue to ask the question, what do you have to lose? You are already losing. But yes, the offensive coordinator definitely has to change, but that's not going to happen until after the season. Tom Allen is a very inexperienced head coach because he's never been a head coach. And I don't care about high school. That doesn't count. I'm talking about the Big Ten. This is the big leagues. High school does not count when it comes to this. Not in football. Basketball, different. Jim Shannon in New Albany, he could go to a college and coach. It's a different sport. You can make that transition. A good coach, saw Jim Shannon over the weekend, by the way. But he's a good coach, great coach. Now, does that guarantee he can move to the college level and be successful? No. But I think that he could. Todd Sturgeon of Floyd Central, I think he could go to a college. He's been at college. I think basketball is a little different. And I think those guys that are successful, they could make that transition. And football is a lot different. It's a beast, especially when you're talking Big Ten Division I. And that inexperience has allowed, first of all, he's turned the offense over. In the very beginning, he said, I'm just basically turning the offense over to those guys because he doesn't know anything about offense. He's a defensive coach. And not having been a head coach, he doesn't have that offensive experience. And he doesn't have the experience of the involvement of being involved in the offense. And that has killed this team. And if you think otherwise, well, everybody can have their opinion, and everyone's opinion is just as valuable as anybody else's, including mine. But yeah. I think I can stand behind some factual information on that.
And I think it all comes full circle when it comes to Indiana football. Tom Allen hasn't been successful as a head coach because he doesn't have the right people around him to be successful as a head coach. He doesn't have the right people around him to be successful as a head coach because Indiana doesn't pour money into their football program.
Boom! You just hit the nail on the head. Not only is he the lowest paid head coach in the Big Ten, the assistants are the lowest paid in the Big Ten. You get what you pay for. There is a direct correlation. I posted the salaries list of the Division I football coaches. Look at that list. Look at the teams above Indiana. Look at the teams below Indiana. There is a direct correlation. It's right there. So if you want a good football program, Indiana needs to decide, hey, we would like to have a good football program. So why don't we, instead of building all these beautiful, shiny toys, why don't we get a good product first? The people will come. They will demand more seats. They're going at it backwards.
Sell beer in the stadium. See what happens.
Well, that would help keep people in the stadiums and maybe help get them into it.
And it's going to generate revenue to use for the football team. I think long term, that's the way to go.
I'm sure Fred Glass would want to build a new rowboat shed or something. God forbid, put it into the coaching staff. Just build a new rowboat shed. Something beneficial. Hit us up on the text line. Let us know what your thoughts are. 502-414-1450. We got a lot of show coming back. John Boel from Wave 3 NBC will be with us. And Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, all coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. Coming right back after this.
If you want to get your day off to a good start, then stop at Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. While you're filling your gas tank, you could fill your own tank with a hot breakfast or try one of Billy Joe's daily lunch special. Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart opens at 5 a.m. and everything is made fresh daily. And if you bring your own mug, coffee is only 50 cents. And Billy Joe's also has free air. The best place to start your day is at Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs.
Today's guest is brought to you by Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center, located 5 miles north of downtown Louisville, just off of I-65 at Veterans Parkway in Clarksville.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat here on this Monday, October 29. Joined now by John Boel from Wave 3 NBC. John, how are you, my friend?
Good. How are you guys?
Up and at it, baby. It's another Monday. I'm here and at it. Big weekend of college football, and not a good weekend for your Wisconsin Badgers.
No, I saw that coming, so I went fishing instead.
He is the most devoted fan. How was the fishing?
Fishing was absolutely fantastic, man. Yeah, I knew that. After the Badgers couldn't even be competitive against Michigan, that the season is over. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see who comes out of their division now.
Yeah, you've got Purdue up there fighting for the top. Northwestern, obviously, with a commanding lead because they've already beaten Purdue. They've now beaten Wisconsin. They've got a huge matchup with Notre Dame this weekend before they end up playing Iowa to determine who's going to win that division.
Yeah, I've got tickets to the Purdue-Wisconsin game. If anybody wants to buy them off me, you know where to find me.
You no confidence?
No confidence at all, man. They're awful. They got no quarterback, and the rest of the team is really not that good. I was slipping around, watching some college ball. I got kind of into the Kentucky game late, although Kentucky's offense is unwatchable, man. It's so boring. It's so bad.
Well, and that was a horrible game. They got the win, so you got to give them that. But, my God, what a horrific pass interference call at the end of the game, and then a horrible non-offensive pass interference call where the guy obviously pushed off. But, hey, a win's a win, I guess.
Yeah, what was interesting about that was when I was watching it live, the pass interference call, the defensive pass interference call that set up the untimed down, live, I thought it was interference. And then in the replays, I thought it was interference. And then somebody posted afterwards, and the next day, ranting about it. And the first time I looked at the replay, I thought it was pass interference. And then I watched it 5 or 6 more times, and it's obviously not pass interference. The defender had his ground, looking at the ball.
And then he just falls down.
The receiver for Kentucky just mauls him, goes over the top of him, knocks him down, and they call the defender for it. So, they got lucky there, man. But it's so painful trying to watch Kentucky football. They still try to wildcat all the time, which stopped working pretty much 4 years ago. It never works. Their quarterback is terrible, so they put in Gunnar Hope. I'm better than Gunnar Hope. I am better than Gunnar Hope. Skipping balls, overthrowing receivers. So they pulled him quickly because that was just horrific.
Well, they'll certainly get tested this week. They got to take on.
I know. Then they're in position. Then the other thought I had this weekend was, do you remember how mad everybody was when in the preseason they picked U of L to be 5th in the Atlantic Division? Remember how outraged people were?
Yeah.
They're 7th and last.
That was lofty standards then.
Yeah.
Well, and we was talking of Purdue a little bit ago and Louisville. Lots of noise coming out of Louisville. The second honeymoon with Bobby Petrino is obviously well over. But there's a $14 million albatross hanging around the neck of Vince Tyra and in regards to getting rid of Bobby Petrino right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be Tyra right now. I don't know what you do. what the endowment fund or whatever they call it, the athletic fund, went from $26 million a year ago to $13 million now. So they got an operating balance of $13 million, which is less than it costs to buy out Petrino, which doesn't even include Brahms' $4 million buyout plus his wage. It's just what a mess. Yet I don't think you really have any choice. I was one of the last guys to say you got to give a coach a mulligan on a really, really bad year. But obviously you can't. I mean, it's just they got nobody going to the games. Did you see some of the crowd shots?
Oh, yeah.
Like halfway through the U of L game, it's all pink seats.
Look like Bloomington.
Yeah, actually, a lot of games I watched were like that this weekend. The what other game was the Bengals game? Did you see that yesterday?
Yeah.
Every time they took a field level shot where you could see the second and third decks, there's like nobody there at the Bengals game. And they're like in contention.
I know.
They're not bad.
Usually when they're playing well, they're supported, and a little surprising by that turnout.
I think that might have something to do with opponent, though. I mean, the Bucks haven't been all that great this year.
Yeah, but you got
no, but it was a great NFL game, and I mean the team is good. And I don't. One of my rants, whether it's about U of L or any of these teams, is where is it written? I know this is really controversial for me to say this, but where is it written, or where did it become a standard where if the team doesn't win, that you don't go to games? Like, I went to Badger games for decades when they sucked and lost, like, almost every game. We still filled the stands.
Yeah, I went to every IU game when I was in school.
I mean, like, the second the team gets on a skid, and it's not just U of L, it's everybody. People bail. I can't even identify with that.
Well,
I
think U of L,
my DNA.
I think Louisville and Indiana are similar in the fact that both of them have obviously been very successful in basketball, and I think people get spoiled to that, and they want that same success. And when they don't get it in football, they just say, "Screw it! I'm just going to wait till basketball when my heart's not going to get broken."
Yeah, there was a game. Speaking of that, there was an Indiana game a couple of weeks ago where they were playing a pretty high-profile opponent at home. Was it Penn State or somebody? And it was a good game for a while, and all the stands shots
into the game.
Like nobody.
Indiana comes back, gets close enough that they kick they recover an onside kick, down by 5. Now with a chance to win the game a minute ago, and you look up and there may be 1,000 people in the stands.
Yeah, no, but even before that, there was even really very few people in the stands. I just thought that's bizarre to me.
Well, the halftime, for one thing, at Indiana, you can count on whatever the crowd is at halftime, it's probably going to be maybe 40% of that after halftime. They have pass-outs at Indiana, so you're allowed to pass out, but nobody comes back. They go out and drink beer, sit at their tailgate and watch this game or another game on TV, and they don't come back in.
Yeah, I've witnessed that many times going up there when Wisconsin plays them and having seats way up near the top. And I wonder where everybody went, and you look right over the rim of the stadium, and they're all out there partying in the lot out there. It's bizarre.
They're one of the schools that does not sell beer at the stadium yet. That's something that probably will change, but that's something that a school like Indiana has got to do. They take so many luxuries that they don't have, and it kills me. They have the lowest paid head coach in the Big Ten, and people wonder why. Their product sucks. Well, there's a direct correlation there. And I don't get how it's just common sense. I'm sorry. I posted the salaries for the Division I coaches, and look at the teams that are above Indiana, look at the teams that are below Indiana. It's a direct correlation. There's no accident. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, but I think it's got to do with the DNA of the fan. Like,
oh, yes.
On the same token, I'm flipping around yesterday, and I get into start watching for a little bit even though I've got my NFL boycott underway, I started watching the Packers and the Rams in L.A., and literally over half the stadium is Green Bay Packer fans. Did you see any of that?
I saw the game, but I did not notice that.
The announcers probably mentioned it 75,000 times because, like when the defense for the Packers would do the stand, they turn around and wave their arms up like the crowd noise, and it would be deafening.
Well, if you lived in Green Bay, would you pass up an opportunity to go to Los Angeles? I would want to get out there as quick as possible.
Well, there are not that many people. The population of Green Bay is like 100,000. Like
they brought the whole town.
Well, it's got to do with extended fan regime, but no, I just don't get it. I just don't understand.
Some of the owners. I was some of the team owners, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, all the team owners.
Green Bay being a team owned by the fans.
Yeah.
John, text into the show from B-Merc says new weekly segment, John Boel's Hot Take of the Week.
Oh, yeah.
That's been happening for a long time. We just don't have a name for it.
Yeah, I've been just sitting down for the longest time watching, the ebb and flow of different fan bases and how people just, like, the excuse is don't go to the game if the team's not winning. I just don't get that. And that's my DNA. That's not what I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I'm used to, like I said, I went to every game when I was a student at IU. I mean, it's what you do. And it unfortunately, a decades of mediocrity and disappointment has just led to apathy for some reason. And again, the success in basketball, I think, makes it worse. It just really steps it down. People are, the minute they get disappointed, all they can think about is basketball. And then you have a day like yesterday where Indiana had that secret scrimmage, but word of what went on leaked out, and Indiana's going to kick some butt.
Oh, yeah. No, but the games I've gone to at Indiana, football games I've gone to there, it is first class. It's probably the coolest tailgate area in the entire Big Ten. It's the stadium experience is fantastic. It's really professionally done with their videos and their announcer and the band and everything they try to do. The team has been competitive, not against Wisconsin, the games I've gone to, but in a lot of the other games I'm watching on TV, they're competitive, imaginative, high-flying offense kind of stuff. So
that was with Kevin Wilson. That left a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I know. They're kind of run-based now, but they still, I don't know. I just don't understand it. I wish more people would go to the game.
Yeah, it would certainly make it a lot better. It's got to be better for the players. And I had Mitchell Page, a former player, on last week, and we talked about that. When you come out at halftime, when you're battling, and you look up, and there's nobody in the damn stadium. That just it's defeating in and of itself when you know that your own people aren't supporting you.
Yeah, I just looked at a video here of the card march this weekend, and there was it looked based on the video like there was about 40 people aside from the cheerleaders, like for the card march. That's just terrible.
Awful, but again, you got a lot of apathy there at that program in Louisville, and so we'll see what happens with that after the season. What's John Boel working on? I know every week it's usually something double secret probation as well, but what you got going now?
No, I can finally talk about it because the promos are on there and it runs tonight at 11 o'clock. We got a bunch of questions about the Corridon Pain Clinic in Corridon, noticing lots and lots of Indianapolis taxis bringing patients, raising question, why in the world are people traveling long distances to the Corridon Pain Clinic? So we're going to get heavily into that tonight as to what is going on there and what law enforcement has to say about it, what the patients have to say about it. Trying to determine the costs, like who's picking up the tab. A lot of these patients are taking an hour-and-a-half taxi trips to this pain clinic. They claim on the Medicaid dime. So we'll get all into that tonight at 11 o'clock on Wave.
Very interesting. Look forward to it. John Boel from Wave 3 NBC. Appreciate you joining us, sir.
And don't forget, this is Breeders' Cup week, so build up that Twin Spires or TVG account and join us Friday morning. Sunrise is going to be live out there, and then I'll be there anchoring the show after the Breeders' Cup Classic. We'll go on about 6:15 after NBC signs off on Saturday. So it's going to be a big week.
You got any betting advice for us, John?
Yes, always bet the European horses on the grass races. I haven't handicapped the Classic yet, but I think I like Mackenzie. And the best storyline, actually, of the Breeders' Cup is going to be in the Turf, the mile-and-a-half race before the Classic. There's a filly named Enable who just won the most difficult race in the world 2 years in a row, the Arc de Triomphe. There's like 75 billion horses in that race. It's an absolute stampede. And she beat the boys twice in a row, yet no horse has ever come over here and come in off the Arc and won the Breeders' Cup Turf. So she's trying to be the first to do that. So that should be pretty cool.
Breeders' Cup back at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky for the first time in a minute.
Since 2011. We had it in 10 and 11.
And
the Zenyatta year was 10. Drosselmeyer was 11, and we haven't had it since.
Yeah, they've really been trying to get it back. It's the most successful runs. I think the top 10 attendance-wise are all at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, and it went over big at Keeneland 3 years ago. I was there anchoring for that, and it was huge, and they're going to go back to Keeneland here in a couple of years. So, yeah, do it up right. Go to the Breeders' Cup. Forget about our terrible football teams, and have a lot of fun.
Sounds like a winner, John Boel from Wave 3 NBC. We're talking to you, as always, a pleasure, man. Have a great week.
See you too.
Thank you, John Boel from Wave 3 NBC joining us. Quite the character and very knowledgeable on the art of wagering on horses. The Breeders' Cup coming up, a big event. John was brought to you, of course, by Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center. Whether it's one truck or the entire fleet, Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center has your company covered for sales or service. Locations in Louisville and Clarksville, Indiana. Give John or Aaron a call. They're specialists in Volvo, Hino, Cummins, Mack, and pretty much everything. That's Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center. We've got more coming up here on the program. Of course, Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, is coming up here shortly. We'll try to talk a little basketball with him. I know he was not involved with that at all. He was gone on the call for the football game. We'll talk a little bit of both about that, but I'm sure that some of the information has matriculated its way into the ears of Don Fischer, and look forward to talking to him about that.
Text into the show, Joker text in, says, man, you two have the afterburners on. This day is flying by.
I know, man.
Feels like that for us, too.
Feeling it, baby.
Yeah.
It's been a great show. Great Monday, and just a lot of content, man. A lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys keeping us going. We appreciate it. Hit us up on the text line, 502-414-1450. Got any questions for Don Fischer coming up? Shoot them in real quick. I'll get them out there to him. We've got a lot more coming up as Don will be joining us here shortly, so we'll be right back on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
You can carry me through. Oh, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I want to get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I want to get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Won't you take me away?
Hey, if you're in the market for a new truck or tractor, car, or ATV, you need to be at Hollis Auction Service on November the 10th. Located on Highway 150 in Greenville, just west of Highway 335, Hollis Auction Service also needs items for the auction. If you're looking to sell, call Billy Joe Hollis today at 502-664-1606. That's 502-664-1606. Make sure you're at Hollis Auction Service in Greenville on November 10th. Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat here on this Monday, October 29, 2018. Big Monday. We've had a great show. Sammy Jacobs was on, Drew Davis. We talked a lot about IU basketball. Got Don Fischer coming up here in just a minute. Talk a little bit more about this past weekend's loss in Minnesota and the upcoming basketball game on Thursday against Southern Indiana that looking very much forward to. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Chronic Hoosier will be along, and Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier will get caught up on everything in regards to recruiting and whatnot with Mike and see what's going on. But now we are joined, as always, by the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Don, how are you, sir?
Good, Jim. How are you?
Good. A rough weekend for the Hoosiers up in Minneapolis. Great attempt to come back in that fourth quarter with 22 unanswered points, but in the end, they let it slip away.
Yeah, it was not a good not a good finish, to say the least. It was a good finish until the very end, but unfortunately, this is a football team that really struggled in the first three quarters of this football game. The defensive performance of this contest was reminiscent for a long portion of it to the performance against Iowa, where the defense really didn't play very well at all, and certainly that was the case in this contest as well. You got to give credit to these kids for never giving up, for continuing to fight, to play really competitively throughout the ball game. But unfortunately, you can't find yourself digging a 22-point hole going into the fourth quarter and expecting to win the game. And despite that, Indiana did come back and tie it with 22 straight points to get it to 31-31. Then, of course, they had the opportunity to finish this thing off because they certainly had Minnesota back on their heels. And then they have a 3-and-out, and then the defense gives up a 67-yard pass for a touchdown. That just destroys everything that you worked for so hard in the first 10, 12 minutes of that fourth quarter. So, unfortunately, Indiana falls in what I consider to be a must-win ball game simply because if you want to become bowl eligible, you've got to win 6 games this year, and with 3 left at this juncture, you're playing 2 of the best teams in the conference in Michigan and Purdue, and you're playing a hot team in the sense of what Maryland has done this year. They're 5-3, and even though they've got all kinds of controversy with their head coach being on the sidelines or being not even on the sidelines, DJ Durkin, having been suspended throughout the season to this point, and a former Indiana guy, Matt Canada, as the interim coach, that team is really playing well. They won 63-33 against Illinois on Saturday. So I don't see this Indiana football team unless they just absolutely surprise with what they're going to be able to put on the football field here in the next 3 weeks after this bye week. They're going to have to play some miraculously really good football to win, and they've got to win 2 of those 3 ball games that they've got left, and that's going to be a real chore, no question about it.
Absolutely, and you mentioned Matt Canada being a former coach and player at Indiana. He's going to be coming here as the coach for Maryland. Of course, that's going to add an added area of incentive for him. Not that he probably needs that, but they're playing well. But he definitely is going to want to come in here and put up a good performance because he's auditioning for the head coaching job. He's on an interim basis.
Yeah, there's no question about that. But he's never played. He never played football.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he did. I thought he played for IU. My bad.
Nope, he did not play football at Indiana. He came to Indiana, and I think he actually became a student assistant, that type of thing. But he was never a player at Indiana. He did not play football at Indiana. But he's a terrific guy. He's one of those people you really enjoy being around. Very verbose, and one of those guys that I tell you, he takes a lot of what he was taught by Bill Mallory in that era to the table, and he's a good man and a good football coach. So,
yeah, came from a great area, New Palestine, I think. Great football area there up in Indiana.
Yep, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. And I think the other thing that we don't know what came out of the Minnesota ball game was how many people were injured in that contest. And Tom Allen alluded to it in our post game on Saturday, and of course to the media as well when they talked to him after that contest. I think there were a couple of significant injuries in this ball game, and I don't want to start pointing fingers as to who they were. But I didn't see Jonathan Crawford in the ball game at the end. Juwan Burgess was in there when that 67-yard touchdown pass took place. And Juwan is a great kid, and he's really, really a talented freshman. But he makes mistakes just like every other freshman does, and it was a very costly one on Saturday night. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at Juwan as the only guy because there were other people that made mistakes as well. But I'm just pointing out that Crawford wasn't in the ball game at the end. That's a significant loss if he's not available. Again, I don't know what their injuries are. I never saw them go out of the ball game. I just saw 2 or 3 different players that went out of the contest and did not come back and play again. So this football team probably needs the bye week about as badly as anybody does. Somehow, some way, they've got to get some rest, get healed up a little bit for the stretch run here, because they're going to need a couple of miracle performances. And I say miracle only in the sense that they're going to have to play much better football than they did on Saturday if they hope to gain bowl eligibility.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth in regards to the being off this week. They need to heal up physically and mentally. They can recharge themselves as they head down those last 3 tough games of this season. Text into the show at Don, are you as anxious as most IU fans to get basketball started? They secret scrimmage yesterday, of course, all secret, but the word I've heard is pretty good performance by Indiana overall.
No question, it was a very good performance by Indiana. I didn't see it, of course. You can't. It's when it's secret in the sense that you're not allowed to attend.
Yeah.
I think most people know that they did play, and they played a Final Four team in Loyola Chicago in a practice scrimmage yesterday up at Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. And I don't think there was any question, based on what I was given from inside sources, that Indiana looked really, really good. They played very, very well defensively. They were terrific on the boards in rebounding. I don't have any statistics or anything like that I can relate to you, other than the fact that I know that they played quite well, and they were shorthanded. There were 3 or 4 guys that did not play hardly at all in this ball game. 3, I think, that didn't play, and 1 that barely played because of nicks and things like that. They want to make sure these kids are healthy when the season does start. And, of course, we've got the first exhibition game, so everybody will get a chance to see this team in action come Thursday of this week when they take on Southern Indiana University in an exhibition game down at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. So despite the fact that we can't tell you much more than that they played really well yesterday, we can tell you get a chance to see them yourselves on Thursday night of this week.
Absolutely. And will that game be broadcast over the Learfield Network?
It certainly will. We've always done the exhibition games just like we've done a regular season game. So we will have the broadcast of that contest coming up on Thursday evening at 6 o'clock with our pregame and 7 o'clock with tip. And obviously tonight, the first Archie Miller talk show of the year, the Inside IU Basketball Show with Archie Miller, comes your way at 7:05. So we've got a lot happening basketball-wise this week in this bye week for football.
Absolutely, a lot of excitement. Looking forward to it. One of the things that I was told that came out of that scrimmage from the Loyola camp was a quote: "Their best offense seemed to be shooting and missing, so Justin Smith could just kill us." And that sounds perfect for what I expected from him. But that's increase of 7-inch vertical jump, and he's just a massive individual, a great athlete at 6'8". But just one of the many facets of that IU team this year that's going to pose a lot of problems for opposing teams.
Well, the thing that we do know about this team, they have a lot of size and length. It's a bigger, longer team than we've seen at Indiana in quite some time. They've got a lot of guys that are 6'6" and above. They've got a couple that are less than that, but not many. And I don't think there's any question this team is athletic. The inexperience factor is going to play a role here in the early part of the season, no question about that. But I do think that we've seen carryover from last year at the defensive end of the floor. I think that is one of the things that this team will hang its hat on. I don't know how good a shooting team this team is going to be. I think that will develop as the year goes on as well. I think that this is a ball club, as you remember last year, it was a team outside of maybe Juwan Morgan as a consistent scorer. Didn't really have a consistent person last year. He was the best that they had, and he was good, but he wasn't an outside presence. He was one of those players that played inside most of the time. And I'm telling you that Juwan Morgan is a special player, especially down low. He is really effective in just about every way. But again, we haven't seen who's going to take over some of the scoring load from last season's ball club. We don't know who's improved in that area. And the shooting, from a shooting perspective, this team is still, I think, a little bit challenged based on what I've seen in practice and everything. But I also know that in practice, when these guys go at it, the defense is critically good, and I mean that in such a positive way. I think this is going to be a tremendously good defensive basketball team. I think they'll hang their hat on that a good portion of this season, and then hopefully the outside shooting will continue to develop as the year goes on, because I think that'll be hugely important as well.
Absolutely. You hold a Final Four team to 48 points in your first outing. That's pretty good stuff.
Yep, no question. And I don't know how good Loyola is, or I don't know who all is back with their ball club, but there's no question they're well coached, and it's a good program. And obviously they got to the Final Four last year, so it proves that point pretty well.
Don Fischer, we thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to hearing the call on Thursday night as Indiana takes on Southern Indiana.
Yep, thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate your having me.
Thank you. Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, is gracious enough to join us each week here on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. That's going to wrap up the show today. We've got a lot coming up tomorrow. Sammy Jacobs was on today. Chronic Hoosier will be along tomorrow, along with Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier. We'll catch up with those guys. Lots more coming up. Indiana taking on Southern Indiana on Thursdays. You heard Don talking about that. The broadcast can be heard on Big X Sports Radio, of course.
Speaking of, Joker actually texted in and asked, Jim, will Bubba's have the game on Thursday?
Well, of course.
It's going to be on BTN Plus.
Rather
watch it on a big screen than my phone.
Absolutely. I'll send that text, as a matter of fact, when we get off. But, looking forward to that. But looking forward to just seeing that team actually for the first time. I mean, I've heard a lot. I got a lot of information regarding yesterday. And I wasn't surprised by what I heard, but I was reserved in the expectations of what was expected. But word coming out of yesterday, going to be pretty daggone nice.
Kind of got to see it for yourself at this point.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks a lot for joining us on the program. For Justin Kalen, I'm Jim Coyle, and we'll be back tomorrow with more here on Indiana Sports Beat.